Week 5 gave us answers. Backfields flipped upside down, another rookie tight end might actually be breaking out, and a couple stars finally reminded us why we drafted them. Today we're breaking down every takeaway you need to know from Week 5, who's trending up, who's trending down, and most importantly, who you can trust in your lineups moving forward. And trust me, some of these player situations are a lot different than what the box score tells you. Without Braylon Allen, Breece Hall was the clear guy in the Jets' backfield. He owned 93% of the running back rushing share, 19 touches for 111 yards in Week 4, followed by 18 touches for 155 yards. He's had 4 straight games now with 4 catches. He's crossed 30 yards receiving in 4 out of his 5 games. So Hall, you got to upgrade him to a high-end RB2 moving forward with a pretty decent schedule the rest of the way. Braylon Allen obviously had to miss at least 4 games, but it looks like he's going to miss even more time. And if Breece Hall continues to dominate the way he is right now, I don't think he's going to let up any of the touches to Braylon Allen when he's back. If you're looking for a tight end, there are 2 tight ends out of New York that might be able to make your lineup moving forward. Theo Johnson and Mason Taylor, both likely available on your waiver wire. Mason Taylor had a 26% target share in each of the last 2 games, back-to-back 65-plus receiving yard games, and 75% plus route participation in each one of those. So he's looking like the clear number 2 behind Garrett Wilson. You look at Theo Johnson, he had a 25% target share in Week 4 back in Jackson Dart's first start, then tied the team lead in targets this week and caught both of Jackson Dart's touchdowns on Sunday. Very solid 76% route participation for him. It looks like Dart is favoring him a bit more than Russell Wilson was. He was already running the routes. He just wasn't getting the targets. That seems like it's changing. If I had to choose between one of these guys, it's probably going to be Mason Taylor. He's a rookie. He's already performing. 11 targets in this game. Can't deny that the Jets could be in several negative game scripts moving forward. So Mason Taylor could continue to rack up targets as hopefully the clear number 2 moving forward. Moving to the Browns, Dillon Gabriel under center for the first time, his first start as a rookie. This offense basically rode 2 players. That was Quinshon Judkins and David Njoku. Judkins, he's looking like the real deal, man. 23 carries for 110 yards. He had an additional, I think it was a 56-yard touchdown, wiped off the board because of a holding call. As long as the Browns defense holds up and keeps games close, Judkins will continue to be able to rack up volume. Njoku, he had his best game of the season as well. He received a 27% target share with a season-high 89% route participation. So as long as Gabriel continues to lock in on Njoku, he'll be a solid tight end 1. It's looking like these 2 guys hopefully will be like the clear 2 guys that you can start from this offense, and hopefully it doesn't keep going up and down, with Harold Fannin running more routes and him getting targets. We'll see. He did catch that touchdown early, but that was it in this game for him. It's also worth noting that rookie wide receiver Isaiah Bond saw 7 targets, which was a 21% target share. He only came down with 2 catches, but it is worth noting that they are trying to get him involved. Now going to the Texans, a week after Woody Marks led the Texans backfield with 21 touches, he only got 7 carries in this game. Nick Chubb led the way with 11 carries. It looks like the Texans coach just chose not to build on the momentum that Woody Marks was coming into this game with. He's going to continue to have Chubb part of the mix at the very least for the foreseeable future. Texans are on bye next week. It's possible Marks emerges from that bye with a bigger role, as we see with a lot of rookies, but he can only be trusted as a flex play for now until we see some consistency in backfield usage, because as of now, it's flip-flopping. Alvin Kamara saw a season-low 56% snap share in Week 5 after seeing 70% snap share in Week 4. Kendre Miller's snap share increased to about 40%. He ended up leading the team in rushing attempts. He out-carried Kamara 10-8. So Miller, we talked about him last week. He should be rostered at this point. This is 2 weeks in a row now with his role increasing. If his role continues to grow, or Kamara does in fact end up being traded to a team looking to upgrade their backfield like the Chiefs, the Cardinals, and the Bears, Kendre Miller's fantasy value will skyrocket. Now, staying on the Saints, despite Taysom Hill and Foster Moreau making their way back to the lineup on Sunday, I know a lot of people were hesitant with Juwan Johnson. He still ran a route on a very, very startable 81% of dropbacks. He only received 3 targets, but it's worth noting that he was banged up coming into the game. So it's possible he starts to lose time as Hill and Moreau, get acclimated back into the offense. For now, I think Johnson is still very startable in a great matchup next week against the Patriots. Moving to the Broncos, a week after J.K. Dobbins had a season-low 50% rushing attempt share. I mean, he did have a lot of carries because it was an overall bigger pie last week. Harvey had a season-high 41% share in Week 4 as well. The gap widened once again in Week 5. Dobbins out-carried Harvey 20-4. Harvey only was on the field for 20% of snaps in Week 5 after a 41% snap share in Week 4. And then you had Tyler Beatty involved as well on passing down snaps. It wasn't great. After what we saw with Harvey last week, you're like, all right, maybe we got something here. And all of a sudden, he gets touches taken away. But, Dobbins is playing really well. There's no reason to take away snaps, but there was some hope of Harvey Harvey being a startable running back after last week's 18-touch, 98-yard performance. Now, with that being said, the Broncos are likely heavy favorites next week against the Jets. That opened with the Broncos favored by 7.5 points. We could see a similar plan to what they had going into the Bengals game in week 4, where there was a lot of carries to go around, and both of these guys got it in. Moving to the Dolphins, with Tyreek Hill out, Jaylen Waddle stepped up. Overall wide receiver 8 finish, pending Monday Night Football, of course. 6 catches for 110 yards and a touchdown on 9 targets. 25% target share. This is exactly why we were trying to buy Jaylen Waddle last week, because he has that elite ability and wide receiver 1 capability for the rest of the season. I'm going to continue to start Waddle as a wide receiver 2 moving forward. He has the ability to make his way into the wide receiver 1 ranks eventually with some consistency. Also, by the way, Darren Waller continuing to ball. 5 balls for 78 yards and a touchdown, which makes 3 touchdowns in the last 2 games for him. So Waddle and Waller, easily the top 2 options for Tua right now. Huge game for Rico Dowdle. Chuba Hubbard didn't play. The Panthers finally found their run game with Rico Dowdle. He rushed for 206 yards and a touchdown on 23 carries. 26 total touches for him, 234 total yards. Keep in mind, this is Miami's defense, so, he might not, actually, never mind. He gets to face the Cowboys next week, who have been allowing the 6th most fantasy points to running backs coming into last week before Breece Hall's top 12 performance on Sunday. Now, we'll see if the Panthers hold out Chuba with that calf injury for another week. But if they don't, I'd imagine we see a closer split between the 2 backs. And also, if Chuba's getting limited practices this week, I doubt he gets a full workload. And we could see Rico Dowdle potentially just straight up being the better start between the 2 next week, even if both are active. And as expected, in Tampa, Rachaad White was the only running back worth starting in that backfield. He was on the field for 80% of snaps. He was the workhorse there. 18 touches. He saw all the work inside the 10-yard line. He continues to be an inefficient runner, right? But the coaches simply just trust him, right? And that's really what it comes down to. With Bucky Irving, likely out for another couple weeks. He has a shoulder injury now, apparently. That was reported yesterday. So White would be a high-end RB2 in his absence moving forward. Emeka Egbuka, he made it clear that despite seeing the same number of targets as Chris Godwin last week, that he is currently the clear alpha in the Bucs wide receiver room as it stands right now without Mike Evans. He caught all 7 of his targets for 163 yards and a touchdown. Godwin only caught 3 of his 4 targets for 26 yards. He matched that total from last week, so no real improvement there outside of being able to catch a higher percentage of his targets because he's just straight up saw less targets this week. Egbuka, he started the season as a league winner, and he continues to prove that he was one of this season's best fantasy draft picks. And I know most people in this community have Emeka Egbuka on their rosters. Now, I'm not sure how many games it's going to take for the coaching staff to notice that Kenneth Walker is severely outproducing Zach Charbonnet, but Walker's still not getting the lion's share of the backfield. He's not even outsnapping Zach Charbonnet. I'd imagine it happens at some point, but over the last 2 games, Walker has taken his 29 carries for 167 yards, while Charbonnet has gained only 75 yards on his 21 carries. And guess what? Charbonnet continues to outsnap Walker and continues to vulture him at the goal line like he did on Sunday. Now, the good news is that Walker is starting to get more carries inside the 10-yard line like he did on Sunday. I'm hoping that continues, and hopefully that turns into some touchdowns and hopefully some goal line carries as well. I know you guys had Calvin Ridley on your bench, but of course, in classic Calvin Ridley fashion, banged up coming into the game. Nobody trusted him. He averaged 2.5 catches for 35 yards per game, and then proceeds to catch 5 balls on 10 targets for 131 yards. While sitting on everybody's bench. Can't make this up. So we're going to put him back in our lineups next week, and we can all guess what he'll do next week against the Raiders. Really hard to trust, obviously, but maybe this is the glimmer of hope that this is the start of him getting it together. Maybe. I doubt it, but maybe. Now, as expected, in the Cardinals backfield, we talked about this. We gave you the upper hand here. And Michael Carter was going to be the primary running back for the Cardinals on Sunday, and he was. He had 23 touches, 57% of snaps. He also led the backfield with 5 targets on a 49% route participation. He ran the most routes too, more routes than Amari DeMercado, who, by the way, got some run, but he inexplicably dropped the football for a touchback on a long would-be touchdown run and got chewed out by his head coach on the sideline after the fact. Now, with Trey Benson out for a while, Carter is in the low-end RB2 conversation moving forward. Omarion Hampton, 3rd straight game with 5+ receptions, but his day was cut short with an ankle injury. We don't know the severity of it, but he was seen in a walking boot after the game. And if Hampton misses time, we'll likely see a committee between Hassan Haskins and Kamani Vidal. Haskins likely the early down back, Vidal likely the passing down back. Now, if we're forced to see this duo in the backfield, we'll probably just see Justin Herbert throw the ball like 45 times against Miami next week. That would be my guess. But Omarion Hampton, just because he's in a boot, does not mean that it's a bad injury. So hopefully he'll be all right. Hopefully he doesn't miss too much time. Maybe he won't miss any. We'll see. Bill Croskey-Merritt, man, this is the game we've been waiting for. 31% snap share coming into this game. So really, really risky start. But he received a season high 16 touches, 47% of snaps, and he took full advantage. He racked up 150 total yards. He looked great all season, and he just continued to ball in this game, and he continues to ball anytime he's given opportunity. And I think he's now officially startable as more than what he was before, which was just a desperate flex play with some upside. And now he enters the RB2 conversation pretty easily. Deebo Samuel, man. We've been talking about Deebo Samuel all offseason, and I think a lot of people gave me a lot of flack for it, but man, is he getting it done. 3 wide receiver 1 finishes in 5 games now. He's tied with George Pickens for wide receiver 7 on the year. Most didn't believe in Samuel in this offense, but we did. He fits this offense like a glove. He proved so far that he was one of the best fantasy picks on the board this summer. He has 2 great matchups on deck against Chicago and Dallas coming up. He's a must start right now. Ja'Marr Chase didn't have much production coming into the 4th quarter, but 2 garbage time touchdowns while the Bengals were behind big. It all counts, so we'll take it. It's great to see some life, but it's really, really tough for Chase to sustain this type of production with the absolutely terrible quarterback play, man. It's getting bad. He also had 3 tackles in this game. Ja'Marr Chase did. So that tells you what you need to know. This could be an opportunity for, if you have Ja'Marr Chase, try to get a haul back. You have the production, he has the name value. You can probably get a lot for Ja'Marr Chase this week. And I would recommend doing that. If you have a deficiency at the running back position and then you can get a wide receiver back as well, maybe you can turn Ja'Marr Chase into 2 really good players. I would do that. I like the matchup a lot coming into this game for Chase. But the Bengals have a really tough one next week in Green Bay. If you have him, you're going to start him, but maybe you can move on. The revenge game for Stefon Diggs couldn't have gone better, man. Going into Buffalo against your former team, dropping 146 yards on 10 catches. Diggs saw 12 targets, only 23 routes run though. Okay, so that's a 64% route participation. He was basically targeted on like 50% of his routes. Now that route rate is going to need to go up near that 90% that he saw in week 4 for this type of usage to continue. The Patriots are running a 5-man wide receiver rotation for whatever reason. Hopefully we do see that going up because the production is there for Stefon Diggs. And we saw it last week. We saw it this week. He's looking like a really, really good player. And again, he's somebody that we've been loving this offseason at his price. He started slow, but it's looking like he's coming through big time right now. And by the way, side note, like despite Drake May not scoring any touchdowns himself, like he balled out in this game. And he's looking like one of the best young quarterbacks at this point in the NFL. And he's someone that we also told you guys to draft. That's enough. That's enough of that. But we're going to be back tomorrow with our waiver wire episode. Make sure to tune in. I'll see you guys later. Peace.